Hello everyone and welcome. In this part I want to cover various things, such as I want to cover to attach the user to the post so that we can actually display the user's username in the post. So when I show this post, it displays the user's username. I want to create a new page where we have like a my posts section so we can view all the posts that were created by the current user. And also maybe we can create a place to see all the posts on the whole site. We might also add a footer to get more practice with partials. And so yeah, that's it for now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the server and I'm just going to open VS Code, the project up in VS Code. Okay, so now that I've got the project open in VS Code, the first thing that we're actually going to do is create a footer. So I'm just going to do that quickly. So I'm going to go create a new file and I'm going to say _footer.html.erb. And then inside of here, we're just going to say, for now we'll do a footer tag, and then closing tag, and then inside here we'll just say this is the footer, and we will display it on every page in the application.html.erb. So go to application.html.erb and then copy this. And someone commented on the last part and they said put this render partial inside the body. So that's actually a good idea, and I overlooked that and didn't do it last video, so we'll do it now. And so make sure to have everything that you want to display in the body. It's just convention. It's not necessary, but it is better. So after that, we're just going to go below the yield tag because we want to have it below the content of the page. We want to display our footer. So we're going to go and change this to footer, the direction, and then that should display our footer. So if we scroll down now, we're not connected to the server because the server is not started. So I'll just say Rails S, and then I'll also open up a new tab as well because I might want to run commands while the server is running. So beginner/blog cd beginner. CD stands for change directory. Okay, so now I've got that done, we should have a footer. Although it doesn't have any links on it, it's still a footer, right? So it's better than nothing. Okay, so now that we've done that, I want to attach the post to the user. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to add a user ID to each post, right? And then what we're going to do is in the form, when we're creating a new post, if I just go to that form, we're going to have like a field here, let's just say user ID, and it's going to be inputted with the current user's ID. Then that way we'll have a link between the post and the user ID, and we'll be able to check which post has the current user's ID, and that's how we're going to link the two. If it doesn't make sense now, don't worry about it, that's fine. So in order to add this user ID text field, what we have to do is first create a migration. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, we don't have to stop the server, so I prepared in advance, and we're going to go to the second tab. I'll just make this a bit bigger so you can see it. And what we're going to do is we're going to say Rails G migration, add user ID to, and what do we call it? We call it posts. And user ID is going to be an integer because that's the type of user ID that comes with Devise. So if we hit enter here, we're going to create a migration. Then let's just go and have a look at our migration and see what it says. So db migrate, and then here. As you can see, it says def change. This is just in all migrations, it has def change because we want to change something. It says add column, posts, user ID, integer. So you can see in this format, it says the table, then the column, and then the type. So that's always the way it works. It says add column. So that just means add a column or add an attribute to the post table. It's going to be called user ID, and it's going to be of type integer, right? So fairly simple stuff. And then if we go to the schema.rb, we'll be able to see this change in real time. So I'll just put this over here, and because the posts, right? So we should be seeing like an extra attribute here. It should say like t.integer user ID. And if we go and do this, say Rails db migrate, then we should see a user ID, right? And as you can see, now we have a t.integer user ID. So that is really good. Now we could also index this user ID, and that would make it appear faster when we're searching for it, but that's not necessary right now, and we'll get into that later in the course, right? So, okay, now that we've done that, what we can do is we can go to the form, right? So let's go to posts form and let's add the user ID. So what I'm going to do is just copy this. Actually, no, I don't need to copy that. So I'll just copy this body tag. And then I'll just say hashtag, or sorry, not hashtag, but yeah, just a comment. You can do that by doing control/, and we'll just say user ID number field, something like that. And then in there, we'll just copy and paste that. And now this is a text field. We want to change this to a number field so that only numbers can go in there. And no, not a capital, number field. In the yellow here, we always have like lowercase letters. And so in here, we're going to say user ID because that's the name of the parameter. And then we're also going to add another attribute to this line, and it's going to be called the value. The value of this, what's the value of this going to be? Well, imagine we're trying, let's go back here, and imagine we're on this form. This is where we're coding right now, right? We're on this form, and we want to have an extra number field, and it's going to be the user ID. Well, the value of that user ID is going to be the current users who signed in, the current guy who signed in, his user ID, right? So let's put that in. We're going to say value current underscore user dot ID. Now current underscore user, that comes from Devise, right? It's one of the methods. And then dot ID, that's just one of the attributes of one of the methods, right? So it's fairly simple. Now, if you notice in the schema, right, it doesn't actually say ID anywhere here, which might be a bit confusing. Where is the ID? Well, that is part of the Rails magic, and it does actually have an ID. Every table or every model is going to have an ID of some sort so that you can differentiate between them. They just don't have it in here because they don't need to say it in here because it's obvious, right? It's obvious. So now that we've done that, if we refresh the page because we're signed in, we should see 2 here. Okay, so perfect. That means that that is working. So what I want to do is I want to say we're just going to make this only appear if we're just gonna disable it from showing up, right? Because we don't need to see this. No place has this. It's always hidden. So to hide it, what we need to do is we need to say display and then none. And I think it's actually style. And then now we go like this, right? So display none. And then that should hide it for us. Okay, and it does. But if we go here, it's actually still passing the value, right? Because in here, in here, right, it's still passing the value, so that is good. Okay, so now that we've got this, it's passing the value. What we have to do is we have to actually go to the post controller and permit the value in the parameters. So we haven't done this, we haven't covered this before, so it's very important that you listen here. It's very extremely important. So go to the post controller in app controllers posts controller. And then inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to go scroll all the way down to the bottom. And here, where it says post params, params.require post.permit title and body. Now, very important, title and body, these are called attributes. Post, that's the name of the model. And it says here in the comment, only allow a list of trusted parameters through. If you studied other frameworks before, this is going to make sense. But if you haven't, this might not make sense to you. So what we're going to do is say user underscore ID, and that is going to permit the value to actually enter the model from the form, right? So that's good. So we've got it in 3 places. So we added the migration to permit it in the database. So we're kind of working backwards, right? We added the migration to permit it in the database. Then we went to the form to actually have it show up. So it gives an option to add the current user's ID. And we permitted it in the controller. So now it'll technically work, and we'll create a post, and the post will have an attached user ID, but we're not actually like doing anything with that information. We're just adding the information if we want to do anything later, right? Now, very important, a common pitfall that people make, which I made myself, is what they do is they have this current user ID, but then imagine we go on a page where we don't have access to the current user ID because let's say the current user is not signed in, right? If they're not signed in, they're not going to have access to this, and then that's going to give them an error. So for example, if I went on the home page, right, and I did current user ID, so we'll just say current user ID. We'll just display the current user ID. Remember, embedded Ruby has this syntax, and then we'll actually get rid of style.none. So imagine I'm here, right, and as you can see, it says 2 over here. I'll just make it bigger so you can definitely see it. And that's good. It's displaying the current user ID. I'm not actually doing this for building the project purposes. I'm just showing it. And so it says 2 here. But if I sign out here, then if I sign out now, we're not going to have access to the current user variable because that's something that Devise gives us, and it only works when we're signed in. So if I sign out, as you can see, now it says undefined method ID for nil. But if I get rid of this, it's obviously going to work because there's no error and everything is the same as it was before and we were signed out successfully. So very important that you don't make that mistake of trying to access variables that you do not have access to and you have not defined. Very common, I see a lot of people do that, so don't make that mistake. Okay, now that we've kind of linked, I'm just going to sign back in here, give me a second. Now that we've kind of linked the posts and the users, what we have to do is actually kind of show what's going on. So what I'm also going to do is go to the models, and inside of here we're going to do something called an association. Our first associations. Associations are paramount in Rails. They're extremely important to link two models together. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a belongs to user association here. What this means is that it belongs to the user, right? So that means that we can say user.posts.all, and that will give a list of the posts, right? And then inside of here, we need to say has _ many posts. I know the Rails syntax is a little bit weird. It has many and then colon posts, right? It's a little bit weird, but I actually like it. It's simple enough after you get used to it. And so that's the two associations that we have to make. Now these two are linked. So then let's see what happens if I go and I say a new post, and then I say the first image and then whatever the hell I want, and then the post is successfully created, right? Let's see if I go back. Actually, I'll just make this, I'll change the title so we can recognize what's going on. So user, we'll just change it to user ID or something, and then go home, right? And now we'll go to the views, posts, and then the post, and we'll say if current _ user dot post or post dot user ID is equal to current _ user dot ID, and we'll actually need to encompass this in another thing. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to display this, right? So we're going to say end. So we're only going to display this one if it's equal to the current user ID. So when we refresh the page, it should still be there because I just made the post and the user ID of the post is equal to the current user.id, right? But if I say only show it if it's not equal to the user ID, which is a bit counterintuitive, then it obviously goes away. So that's pretty cool, right? Now I'm just gonna go through another pitfall, that the same pitfall that I mentioned earlier. It's the exact same one, but let's imagine I signed out here, right? I'm gonna get an error because we're trying to access a variable that we don't have access to. And even though we're not on a page, we're on the _post.html.erb. I didn't actually say that, my bad. I need to say where we are. We're in the _post.html.erb. Even though we're there, this is a partial, right? And so you have to also define the variables inside the partial. And this partial is being displayed on the home page, right? Where we're saying div posts at post.each.do, which is just a do loop in Ruby. We're saying render post. So we're rendering the partial of post, right? And this is another bit of Rails magic. We're also saying render post, right? And that's because we're able to do that because we're in the post folder and we have access to this _post.html.erb. So we're rendering this partial even though we're not using the partial logic of like render partial and then the location. We're just saying render post, and that's because we're able to do that because we have access to this variable and we're in the post folder and we're saying this. Sorry, my phone just... Okay, so let's go back to this _post.partial, and let's just make sure that it's like that. And for now we'll just comment this out, right? We don't need this right now, so let's just comment this out and get rid of the error. Okay, so I'm just gonna log back in, and what we're gonna do is, now that we've added that functionality, what we're gonna do is we are going to add the my post page where we can see all the posts that the current user has now made. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do, this is our first time creating our own page, right? Very important that you listen here because you're going to be creating a lot of your own pages, right? That's how a website is made. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the pages here. In this pages folder, you can create it as well. You can just say new folder pages if you haven't got it already. And what we're going to do is, actually no, we're not going to work inside the pages folder. We're going to work inside the post folder. And inside of here, we are going to say my posts.html.erb, right? And now that we've done that, what we can do is we can go to the post controller. We can add a new method. We're going to say def my posts end. And the reason that I can do that is because this mypost.html.erb is inside the post folder, and this post folder is linked to the post controller. If I wanted to work in the pages folder, I'd have to create a pages controller and then create the name of the file as a method in the pages controller and the file here. Let's say I had like my posts, I'd have to create a my post method in the pages controller. So just to recap on that, we worked in the post folder just to make it quicker so that we have my posts in the post controller and we can just have access to the variable of posts and my posts. So what we can do is just copy this, right? We're just going to copy exactly that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the post controller and we're going to say at posts is equal to posts dot where, and then we're going to say current underscore or user ID is going to be current underscore user dot ID. And so that's going to decide or define our post variable. And then now that we've got that, we're going to go to the layouts navbar and we're going to create a new link. So if we're signed in, then we're going to show this link and we are going to copy the first link home. And we're going to put it in here, right? And we're going to say my posts. In fact, we won't actually put it in the if current user. Actually, no, we will. And then we're inside of here, we're going to say posts underscore my posts underscore path. That's because it's in the posts folder and it's called my posts. So we say posts underscore my posts underscore path because all routes always end in a path, right? And we're going to go Control P and then we're going to go to the routes. And here we're going to set up a new route. What we're going to do is we're going to say get, and it is going to be my posts as post / my posts, and we're going to say to posts hashtag my posts, right? So we're saying get my posts as my posts, post / my posts, to post hashtag my posts. If we refresh the page, see what happens. As you can see, now we have this link here. If we go there, we are actually showing the post that the current user has, right? And the reason that we're only showing one post is because the other posts are, while they are made with the current user, we only implemented this functionality with one post because we only created one. These posts are old posts basically, and the user ID was not there when we created them. So what we can do is just to show you. So go to VS Code and then change the seed file, and we're gonna use our alt click. So alt click there, alt click here, alt click, alt left click. Then we're gonna say comma, and then we're gonna say user underscore ID, and we're gonna say 1, right? Because the first user on the application is gonna be number 1. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop the database. So we're gonna say Rails DB underscore drop underscore safe, right? That's gonna drop the database. Then we're gonna Rails DB create. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to say Rails S, right? So we're going to start the server, 3 pending migrations, that's okay. And we're getting an error because we're not signed in. So in order to get rid of that error, we're just going to say, go to app controllers, post controller, and we're going to say if current user here, just to get rid of that error for now. There are better ways of doing that, but for now that should work. We're also getting an error here. And so we're going to have to do that as well. So in fact, we'll just go to else and we'll say route path. That should work. Redirect to route path. Okay. So now if I try to go to my posts where I'm not allowed there because I'm not signed in because we have a redirect to route path. Okay. So now that we've got that done, what we're going to do is sign up, then see the database, and we should have plenty of posts already. So sign up. And now if I go to my posts, there's nothing there. But if I seed the database, so I'm going to stop the server and then do Rails DB seed, we should have some posts there for us. Okay. And as you can see, there are the posts. So we've successfully created a my post page. Now what we're going to do is we're going to display the email of the user underneath each post. So we're going to say, we're going to go here and we're going to go to the views posts underscore post.html.erb. And inside here, we're just going to add as another thing, we're going to say post.user.email. So add that. And as you can see, it says povaipad@gmail.com, which is the email that created this post. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change it so that it doesn't display the email, it actually displays the username. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go and add an attribute to the users table, because in the users table, there is no username. So we're going to have to add that to the here. So we're going to do that via a migration. Then we're also going to have to create the Devise or generate the Devise controllers and permit the username column or attribute. It's kind of the same step we did for the user ID, right? And so let's go ahead and do that. And we're also going to have to put it in the form, okay? So to do that, we're going to stop the server and we're going to say Rails G migration, add username to, we're going to say users, and then username, user underscore name is going to be a string. So make sure to take heed and look at this line here, Rails G migration, add username to users, because it's very important that you don't get any of the capitalization wrong. It's very important there are no spaces. You make sure it's exactly the same as this. I think like even if you add like even one thing wrong, the command's not going to work, right? So it's very strict. So hit enter on that command. And now that we've got that migration, we should be able to continue. So let's have a look at the migration, make sure it's correct. And it says add user, add column, users, username, string. So that looks like it's correct to me because it has the right format. It says the table first, then the attribute, and then the type. So that's good. And now we're going to say Rails DB migrate. So run Rails DB migrate, the best command there is. And as you can see in the users, we now have a username. So that's good. Now what we can do is we can say Rails G Devise controllers, and we're going to say users, right? Because we want to generate the Devise controllers. And then it also says some setup you must do manually if you haven't yet. Ensure you have overridden routes for generated controllers in your routes.rb. For example, Rails application routes.draw.do, Devise for users, controllers, sessions, user sessions, right? Because they want us to actually, they want us to say that we're actually going to be using the controllers that we generated, okay? So go to the controllers and then users, and these are the 5 or 6 new controllers that we have generated. The one that we're going to be interested in is this one. It's called the registrations controller. So we're going to uncomment this, and it says before action configure signup params only create. So what this means, what before actions are, is just before actions. So before doing anything, run this method, right? Then we're going to scroll down here and we're going to uncomment this, and it says if you have extra params to permit, which we do, it's called the username, append them to the sanitizer, which just means add them here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the attribute and we're going to call it username because that's the one that we want to append, okay? So now that we've done that, we've permitted it in the controller, we've added it to the schema.rb, but one thing we haven't done is added it in the form, and that should be the last step. There are 3 steps when you want to add a column, right? So go to views, Devise, and registrations, new, and then inside of here we just need to add a username field. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to hit enter, and then inside of here we're going to say username, and then also username. And I actually want this above the email because actually no, we'll just keep it there. It doesn't matter, right? So go to Brave or go to your browser, save and sign out. I need to start the server. So start the server, and this is actually one extra step that we have to do because we're using Devise. So go to the routes.rb. I'm just going to close that, and then go to config routes.rb, and then inside of here we're just going to copy this, and we're going to copy this, if I can actually copy, and then go here and then put it in there. Now it says Devise for users, controllers, so it's the same, only that we're specifying which controllers to use. If we specify a controller, it means that it's going to use the controller that we have in here rather than the default one, right? So instead of here, we're going to say, instead of this, we're going to say registrations and then users/registrations, okay? And then that's really it. Now we should have a username field working. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go to posts_post.html.db, and we're going to change it to post.user.username. Okay. What was it? Was it underscore username or a username? So user underscore name. Okay, so user underscore name, and then that should work. But we might get an error because this one doesn't have a username, but no, we don't, because it's just nil. So that's good. Okay, so now if I create a new post, right? Every new post that's created, it should show the username of, I'm just deleting all these posts for some reason, don't even know why. Anyway, sign out, sign up, and we're getting an error. It says undefined method username for an instance of user. That's because I spelt it wrong. If we go to the Devise, registration is new. I spelled it wrong, right? In the schema.rb, we have user underscore name. In the label, it should be okay. And now it's working, okay? So username. And we're just gonna sign up again with a new account. Our username is not gonna be that. It's gonna be Maliki Rails. Subscribe. And then password confirmation, sign up, right? Please include an email address. Okay, so that happened, right? Because we need to go to autocomplete and get rid of the email, because this is thinking that it's an email field, but it's actually not. This is not to do with Rails, it's just to do with HTML, but it's the Rails way of doing the HTML. So now if we refresh the page, we're not going to get that kind of error. It's not going to tell us you can't submit the form without adding an @ We should be able to submit the form even without an @ right? Because we don't need @ in the username. So sign up. We're still getting that. Oh yeah, it's because of an email field as well, not the autocomplete. So I just need to do text field, username, and now we should be good to go, right? So it's quite a lot of steps just to get this to work, but that's always going to be the case in no matter what you do software-wise, right? So now that we've successfully signed up, if I actually make a new post, we should actually display the current user's username or the post's username. And as you can see, Maliki Rails made this post. So I'm just going to go to the underscore post, and we're just going to add a made by Maliki Rails, right? So that's good. So far we have added a footer, we've connected the posts and the users, and we've also added this username to Devise. So we've done 3 things so far. I'm just going to fix this a little bit. I don't really like the spacing between that. I know it's a CSS fix, but let's go and fix it. So we're going to go to layouts, navbar, and inside of here where it says sign out, we're going to add a margin, right? So let's go ahead and add a margin. So where it says here, it's actually good practice. So style, and then we're going to do quotes, and we're going to say margin left. Just add 20 pixels, okay? And then that should fix that. Now I'm just going to show you something quite cool that comes with Rails. So let's go and stop the server, and we're going to run a command called the Rails routes. And this command is going to show us all the routes available in Ruby on Rails, okay, in our application. So as you can see down here, if we go, we're looking for something called edit user. So edit user registration, and it's a get route. I'll just explain a little bit about the different types of web requests and try and put it as simply as possible. So get requests means that we're getting information. Get requests are common when you're like going to a page. So you're going to go to a different page, the server's not working, so it's not going to work, right? But when you're going to a page and you want to go access a new page, you're probably going to use a get request, but you could use different requests. But that's, I just think of it as getting information. And then the next most common one is going to be post, put, or patch. They're all quite similar. Don't even know what the difference is between them, to be honest, but they all send information, okay? So imagine you're submitting a form. The form could be using post, put, or patch. So it's going to be here, patch, put, or post. And that's the what they do, okay? And then delete, obviously, that's delete thing. So imagine we're going to delete a post in our application. We're going to use a delete web request, a web request. And those are all the ones that are mentioned here. So that's all I need to go into. Okay, and now that we've got that, we want to add a new link, right? So what I'm looking for is the edit user registration, and it's here. So now that I've got that, all I need to do is say edit user registration path, _path, and that is the link. So to do that, let's start the server again. Start the server, right? Res S, so S stands for server. Refresh the page. We want to add a new link here because I'm going to show you something new if you haven't seen it before. So go to VS Code and then go to the navbar. And let's say we wanted to edit our email or edit our username or edit our password, right? Well, all these Devise pages, they have to do something, right? They're not all useless. So we're going to go and we're going to magically show a page to edit the username, email, and password. So the way to do that is we're going to go to navbar. And then if we're signed in, so if current user, if we're going to be signed in, we have to do that. And where it says sign out, we're going to go copy this link. And then we're going to say link to, and we're going to call it edit user, right? Or in fact, we'll call it, we'll just call it account, right? And then inside of here, instead of that, we're going to say edit user registration underscore path. Save that. And then now we're getting this, and we're just going to add some margin to get rid of that, the fact that they're next to each other, right? So now I've got this new link. Where does it lead us? Well, let's have a look. Account. And obviously here, you can edit whatever you want. So you can change your email, you can change your password, you can change your password. The username's not actually here because it wasn't automatically updated because it only comes default with email and password. So we can add that now. And you can also cancel your account or delete your account, right? We're not going to do that just yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and add the username. So registration, edit. And then what we're going to do is add a new field. Just go below the email and we're going to call it username. So it's going to be user underscore name. Also make sure to change email field to a text field. And we're going to get rid of autocomplete email. And then that should be good to go. Now we have a username and it actually shows the username, the current user's username as well. Now, something that we need to do is we actually need to permit this in the controller. So go to controllers, users, registrations controller. And then we need to say def configure account update params. And we're essentially doing the same thing that we did earlier, right? Here we permitted or allowed parameters to pass through, such as the username. Here we're permitting or allowing the parameters to pass through, such as the username. So that's the same thing, right? But here it's called the configure account update params, and there it was on sign up. So we have to allow it through for each time, which is kind of magic. It's kind of like magic, right? But don't worry about that. It makes it better overall. And now that we've done that, we should be able to actually update our username. So let's see if we can. So I'll change it to just Maliki and add in the password because you have to do that right now to actually change anything. You have to add your password and change your account has been updated successfully. And that's pretty cool. And it didn't work actually. It still says Maliki Rails. Oh yeah, because we have to add this before action. And now if we try it, it should actually work. So add this before action, uncomment it, before action, configure account update params only update. Very important that you add that. If you don't add that, it shouldn't work. And now if we update, add in the password again, your account has been successfully updated and it actually has changed the username. Let me just check if the email will work. So change the email and update, and it says that, and the email has also changed. Now, that's good, right? Try an update. Without adding the password, it says one error prohibited this user from being saved. Current password can't be blank. I'm just going to show you where these things come from. So if I go to edit, obviously it's quite a cumbersome file. There's quite a lot going on here, right? A lot of colors and a lot of whatever. But where is this actually coming from? Well, this comes from here. Leave blank if you don't want to change it. Characters minimum, that's something else, sorry. This right here comes from this partial here. So render devised shared error messages, resource. And if we go to shared error messages, as you can see, it has the error explanation and the errors count and the downcase of the model name. So this is just kind of, imagine Devise, right? Imagine they wanted to say like admin, so you can create admin models. So like then it would say one error prohibited this admin from being saved. So what this means is that Devise is fully able to work for any different type of model, named model, And so that's why it's like this instead of like user, right? User everywhere. Anyway, we've done well this episode. We've added 4 new features. We've added a footer, we've added a My Posts and account page, and we've also made it so that it shows who made this post, right? So that's good going. It's only part 2. There's going to be quite a few parts to this series, and by the end of it, you're going to be at least an intermediate in Rails. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, I just want to say something before we end, and that is that I am currently offering a mentorship program on Patreon. So if you're having trouble with Rails or you would like someone to help you with it, then I can help you. I don't mean to sound salesy, but I do think that this service is actually really good for people who are struggling and who would like some help.